So what are maybe the one or two things that you want people to know who might not be familiar with Generations of Promise to know about your program?
I'll let you go first so I can think about that a little.
Cheater. I would say for anyone who doesn't know about Generation of Promise, that what it gives us in the metropolitan community is a really concrete example of what it takes to change the state of race relations in our community. It takes very intentional action to expose yourself to multicultural environments. It takes very honest self-reflection on where you are, what your story is, what kind of stuff you come with, what kind of dialogue goes on in your head, and a willingness to confront that. And it presents us with an opportunity to commit to act, which is something that we challenge the students throughout the program to do. So if I'm just an average Joe on the street thinking, well, you know, I care about this issue, but I don't know how to make a difference on it. Well, if you're still living in your same homogenous world and you're not making an effort to experience the community as it really exists with the diversity that's really in it, then we're always going to be where we are right now. But if you can look to the program, what it offers students, and take that opportunity to deliver it to yourself and to the people in your environment, then we have an opportunity to really make progress.
So let's go back to one thing really quickly before Mike goes. You know, as you know, the regional scorecard is one of the 1D cornerstone projects, and so we measure in the race relations, race equity area things like grade level rating and access to health care and high school graduation rates, and you know, the list can go on and on. So when students are going through the curriculum of Generation of Promise, are you connecting them to very specific things? I know that I'm leading you because I was involved with that.
Absolutely. Well, number one, we spend some time looking at the history of inequality and discrimination in our region so they can kind of identify patterns of discrimination that have existed. And then number two, we try to look at current issues and communities that might be living an unequal experience to try to figure out if there's a role that we need to all play in that. So we might be looking at, you know, the way poverty affects people. We might be looking at the community with disabilities and the challenges that they face. We'll look at issues like the media and its impact on the way that race is perceived or the way that community issues are perceived. And through really hands-on kind of coordinated experiences, we bring students into opportunities where they can learn more about those issues, study them, make them personal, and then figure out what they want to do about them. So if we're learning about homelessness and poverty, they'll go to neighborhood services organization and interview people at the drop-in center and try to figure out what's happening in our community, what systems exist or don't exist that are allowing these sort of realities to happen for people. And it's that sort of exploration that builds a personal investment for the student in the solution, which is unfortunately what we lack in this region. In the region, we're looking at individuals living a very singular life experience that are disconnected from the realities in other communities. We make it impossible for the students in our program to not know the realities of life for people in other communities, the good and the bad, so they can say, okay, this is a larger community that I'm a member of, and now I have an investment in what happens in the lives of all these people.
And there's a question I'm going to probably ask Paul and Diana as well, but do you sense from the time that we were in school that there's a change in the curriculum itself so that students are more aware coming even into the program? We use the example when I was talking to Tom Costello of Thanksgiving. You know, when I was growing up, you learned that it was this wonderful holiday where people came together and they shared their food, and you didn't get any of the backstory about what really happened with the Native American population when Europeans came in. So is it still the case that curriculum still is very much watered down and gentrified and not telling the real story, so that when kids come in, they're kind of blown away by the realities of some of the things that you're sharing with them?
Well, it's certainly my impression that the young people in our community, by and large, have almost no knowledge of the real history of the region and what sort of challenges and injustices have been part of people's life experiences in the region historically and present day. I mean, when you mention, you know, things that happened in our community in the civil rights movement, or you know, the disturbance of the summer of '67, young people have no idea what that history is, and we're living every day the reality of this history. And so it's interesting to me that we're still, from an educational perspective, choosing not to, or at least overlooking the opportunity to educate on those things.
And Mike, back to you on the one or two things that you would want somebody to know about Generation of Promise.
Well, I've appreciated the opportunity I had to think about this.
You cheater.
Or what do you find in your experience that people don't usually realize?
Well, you know, the first, being a representative of the oldest generation that's involved with this program, I'm quick to tell anyone of my age and shortly or even a bit younger that don't give up on this generation. These young people are really energized, creative, passionate. I mean, truly a generation of promise, and they give us, or me, every reason to believe that the future is going to be much better. And you know, again, I referenced the graduation ceremony that we go through every year, and every single one of them have been moved by the experience, are thrilled that they had this opportunity, brag about the new friends that they made, bragged about the little knowledge they had about other cultures and ethnicities and racial groups, and how much they've learned in just 9 months. And to me, that's very empowering, because it means that all of us can grow. This is a personal journey that if we all just understood that we can learn so much from each other, I think it could tell great stories about where we're heading in this region.